I have never ever done this. Like I said, this is the first time. Uh, I am not screen friendly. I I do not enjoy the spotlight a lot. But if I'm meant to do what I'm meant to do, I think I just take it in my stride and do it. So here I am. Thank you so much, Sheetal, for giving me this opportunity to tell my story. And it's not a very unique story, or there's absolutely nothing special about this story. It's a run of the mill story like anybody else. I have a saying which I keep telling myself, that it's life. Nobody got out of it alive. So whatever comes your way, you take it in your stride, make the most of it, and move on. But before I start this, there are some people who have been extremely instrumental in in putting me where I am. One of them I can see here, but there are another few also. So let me start this session by expressing my deep gratitude and thank you to my Masi, Meena Pingre, to my sister Sonali Kamath, to Sham and Nanda Narvekar, to Vandana Potnis, sexy, to my mama Manohar Paranspe and my mami Anjali Paranspe, and to my son, because he, in his own way of a 24-year-old, helped me through this journey. So, a big, big thank you to all of them. Having said that, I have friends. I have friends, and I have close friends, and I have friends who are family. So, I cannot tell you, or I cannot count the number of people who have been responsible to help me through what I went through, right from a little before 2016 to even today. So all those who out there, they definitely know who they are. And a big thank you to all of you for helping me reach where I am today. Also, a big, big thank you to something called the Tata Hospital. People go to a temple. I consider that to be my temple. The doctors there are selfless, is to say the least. Dr. Sareen, Dr. Tanuja Seth, Dr. Nair, Dr. I just keep forgetting names now that I have to state names. Dr. Badwe, Dr. Ashutosh, Dr. Pradnya Manvatkar. I can't tell you the list of doctors who have held my hand and led me through this battle. So I'll start at the very beginning, because the very beginning is where you start. In 2003, I headed a section of an international school and decided that I wanted to do something more, reach more than 1,000 students that were there in that school, and make a difference to education in probably just in and around me, if not the entire city. And having thought about that, I gave up a very, very cushioned, successful job to start something of my own. I started with a consultancy with a friend, which helped me realize that education was not what happened at the top. Education was actually what happened at the bottom. So, with another friend who I suppose is here or not, I don't know. If you're here, hi Priya, who's a JG School of Arts student, we decided to put in a skill development program together and take it out to schools. Our program was well received, to say that it received accolades, but nobody was, like any startup, nobody was ready to take it on. We actually have understood the frustration that startups go through. We have met people where it looked promising to only be have our hopes crushed the next day. We have met people who have told us that, oh, you know what, you're too pricey, and you know what, you need to cut short on the quality of material that you're using. We met people who raised us but always have a but. We had met people who said, oh, you've seen this and I don't think you're doing something new. And we just took it with a pinch of salt and went on our journey. Something magical happened during that, and we got an opportunity with BARC to actually implement our program. Once we implemented that program, we realized they called us back. We implemented it as a pilot project and they called us back for more. So that gave us a ray of hope. Having said that, I had my own personal struggle going on at that time. So I was struggling on a professional basis, I was struggling on a personal basis, and I was trying to make ends meet. Sorry, that's the English teacher in me. And I realized that life was getting tougher. I needed to have some kind of stability, either personally or professionally. And while doing this simultaneously at BRC, I started looking out for a job. I cannot tell you the period of frustration that I went through. I have made 110 applications, to which I received no reply. And going through that period has been one of the toughest part of life, because there was nothing wrong with me. I was supposed to manage my affairs, and I still couldn't manage my affairs. So it was a deep emotional, mental, physical, social struggle in all aspects. And coming to terms with that and thinking of ways and means to either get onto a job or to find a breakthrough in what we were doing comes June 2017. So one fine day, while just having a bath, I realized that I felt something on my right side which wasn't there a day before. And let me just take a pause here and tell you that we belong to the Big C family. What does the Big C family mean? It literally means that I lost both my parents to cancer. Now I know that it is that both me and my sister are BRCA positive. That is, we carry a gene, and we have had our struggles with cancer. So I was well aware of what was happening in my body, and still I thought maybe not. Maybe I'm the lucky one. Maybe it's not me, it's the neighbor. And I went for a checkup with my gynecologist, and he knows the family history. He knows the entire family. So he said that I would suggest that you go through a mammogram. So trudging along with me was this my very dear friend. We went to Hinduja. We had the mammogram done. The first time they just said, oh, it's no big deal. We don't think you need to be even worried about this. And then when the doctor was doing the sonomammogram, she just asked me about my history. And when she realized what kind of history I was telling her, she called me back. She called me back to have another mammogram. We had a mammogram. I went back to my gynecologist, and he said that this doesn't look good. So let's ask. He consulted. He put me on to a doctor friend of his who was an oncologist. Again, me and Miss Joshi decided to visit the oncologist, and a very jovial person. And he was laughing it off like I was, because I really thought, this can't be me. This has to be the neighbor. So he said that to be on the safer side and looking at your history, let's get a biopsy done. And he asked me to get a biopsy done. We got a biopsy done. Let me tell you, one of the most excruciatingly painful processes that I have ever gone through. And believe me, I've gone through a surgery, but I would still tell you a biopsy is very, very painful. And I went and decided to hand over my sample at Tata, because that's where it is supposed to be done the best. And having done that, they said that, oh, we'll send you back the result in 15 days. So coincidentally and fortunately, like I said, I'm blessed. Supriya had her cousin working there, Dr. Tanuja Sheth, and I told her, Tanutai, my sample is with has been asked has gone for testing, so can you keep a watch on it? So exactly 3 days later, I get a call from Tanutai saying that, why don't you come and see me tomorrow morning? The moment she said that, I could see the writing on the wall. And I said, Tanutai, is it positive? She said, why don't you just come and see me in the morning? So Supriya, along with me, we went to Tata. We met her, and she said, come, I need to discuss something with you. So if anybody who has seen Tata will know, there's not an inch of space in that place where you can actually stand and talk. So she takes me to the administrative office. She asks people to just vacate the office, and it is like I'm watching a movie. It is like that's not me. It's not me who she's talking to. It's somebody else, and I'm standing outside and watching this. And she says that, Akshada, your and my tests were positive, but I'm a triple negative. So irony. So she said that, you are probably genetic, and we will need to get further tests done. Let's have your papers done. Let's consult the doctors who need to be consulted. And I was numb. I was numb because I didn't know how to react. The first question I think I asked her was, do I need to undergo chemo? And she said that we don't know as yet, but you may have to undergo. So I asked her that, okay, what if I just take medication? So she says, with your kind of cancer, it's not going to work. And then I said, okay, what if I decide not to do anything about it? So she laughed it off. She said, nothing else. You'll have a very painful death, but you'll have to wait for 3 years. And there was a flash in my head, and I calculated 3 years is a very long time for a painful death. So I said, okay, let's get whatever needs to be done. But there was a moment where I broke down. Where I couldn't hold back my tears. Sitting there in the administrative office, my world had come crashing down in every sense. So one thing that you always have with you is your health, and if you have that, I think you can conquer the world. And here my foundation was shaken because this was right at the bottom. And she said, and the entire circle started. If I think of it right now, it's gone so fast that I don't know where it's gone. But at that time, every second counted. So the first thing I needed to do was break it to my family, which is my Masi. And she was, it was very difficult to tell her. The most difficult part for me to tell anybody was her, because she had just come back putting my sister on her feet after being detected of ovarian cancer, and I had to go and tell her that I was detected of breast cancer. And she just and it was very funny because I broke this news to my cousin, her son, and she didn't know. She had people over that night for dinner, and I just told her I'm coming. So she said, yeah, come over, we have somebody for dinner, and we're going to have a good time. And when I walked in with my report, and there is a shoe stand right outside our house. So I kept my reports there because I didn't want to spoil her dinner, and I didn't want to break the news when she was so happy. So the dinner was really long because the guests decided to stay on, and then we had a beautiful singing session. And I kept looking at my cousin kept looking at me, and we were just wondering that how do we break the news to her, what do we tell her. And at around 2:30 in the night, we just said, you know what, we're all tired, just let's wrap up. And I called, so the guest was outside, and I called all three of them into the room, and I told them that this is what it is. And I don't think I will ever forget what she said that day. She said, and this is typically in Marathi, that तुम्ही मुली माझी परीक्षा घेत आहात. And it was so right. We were putting her through the toughest time of her life ever. Having said that, I don't know if I would be here today without her. She not only opened her heart, but she opened her house to me. I did not have the capacity at that moment to look after myself on my own. I cannot thank not only her, but my uncle, because, and I'll tell you why, because she's my Masi. I'm related by blood to her. But he took it upon himself to call us his own. He opened up his house. I stayed with them for almost 1.5 years till I got back on my feet. And never did I feel like an outsider. The entire journey started. I was supposed to undergo an operation to get the tumor removed. And after that, it was suggested that I go through 16 chemos, and then after the chemo, they would let me know that if I needed radiation or not. So thus started the journey on 4th of July 2017, American Independence Day. And why 4th of July? Because that's the day I got operated. And it was the most weird experience, because by the time I got up, there was this pipe coming out from my breast, which was attached to a bottle, which sucked in the liquid or the fluid that came or went into the vacuum that was created by the tumor. It had to be taken off 10 days later. I don't think I have been so uncomfortable in my life with having that bag along with me. I don't think that I even realized what was happening to me for the first 3 days. And after that, it started hitting me so hard that this is where I am. This is my journey, and this is going to be tough. So either ship up or ship out. And the doctors then said that my chemo started 21 days later, because they had to see how fast my wound healed. And so it was a game of waiting for the right moment for something to start. And I started with my first chemo. Now, during my operation, they had asked me if I would like to get a port installed. So a port is basically something through which it is either on your shoulder, or a little below your shoulder, or near your breast, on typically the right side. But because I was operated on the right side, it had to be fitted on the left side, and that is precisely where my medication went through. And the port has its own story, because it was here. Not having chemo was here. So not wanting to undergo chemo was here. So a port was fitted on my left side, and I had plumbing done, because they needed to connect it to my artery on the right, and that's why I had a pipe which went from my left side through my neck and connected it to the right. And everybody who saw me could actually see that pipe pumping. And it was quite funny, because I had plumbing inside my body now. And my chemo needed to be done through that. So it was decided that on the 22nd of July is something that I would have my first chemo. And we all trudged, not knowing what is to be done, because if you want to see madness, Tata is where you need to be. There are 9 OPDs, and each OPD caters to 150 patients on a daily basis. And this is, I'm just talking about OPDs. I'm not telling you about patients who are undergoing treatment, who are undergoing operations, and this is a private part of the hospital. The free part has 300 patients. So, but if you also need to see method to the madness, that is the place you need to go, because the kind of selflessness that I have seen under that roof, it's hard to find anywhere else. So we went there, we all sat in the chemo room thinking that somebody is going to call out our name and say, okay, you're ready, just go. And then we realized we had missed an entire process. We had to go first to the medical onco department, get my medication certified, go to the pharmacy, pick up those medications, then go to the OPD for the daycare for chemo, get a token, and then wait for your number. By the time we realized all this, it was afternoon. When they decided to take me on, they knew I was a port patient. There are very few port patients, so they knew I was a port patient. So they decided to wait for a certain kind of trained staff to inject me with my medication. And the staff came and they inserted the needle. So they pierced once. They didn't think it was at the right place. They took it off. They pierced twice. They still didn't think it was at the right place. They took it off. They pierced the third time, and it hurt me all 3 times. And I was just saying that, God, I hope it's at the right place. God, I hope it's at the right place. And then they come back and they said, okay, we think it's gone into the right place, so let's see if it is gone. So they inject something called heparin to see that the way is cleared, and then they pull it back, so it's like a vacuum created, so you have something called a backflow. So once they say a backflow, they know that it's going into the right place, and then they inject the medication. So when they saw that there was no backflow, they tried pushing, they tried pulling, they tried pushing, they tried pulling, and we went on for around 15 minutes, and then they said, we don't think it's in the right place. So what you need to do is you need to go through this specialized cell, which is on the 14th floor in the second building. We will leave the needle there, so why don't you go and check it? So trudged along. In that, it took us around half an hour to get to the other building because it's so huge. And we waited for a turn, and there were these extremely caring senior nurses who tried doing it, who tried inserting that needle so that I could take my medication on that day. And she put it in not exactly like the way I'm showing, but and she said, I think it seems there is some tuck sound that happens, which did not happen in all my 16 chemos. So I don't know exactly what sound are they talking about, but there's some tuck sound that happens, and you know the needle is at the right place, and then they can insert your medication. So she did that. She waited. They pumped in heparin again, and they asked us to wait for 2 hours. We waited for 2 hours. We went back. She tried pumping again, and nothing happened. So she said, you know what, we're not very sure, so why don't we have an x-ray done? So the x-ray was in the basement of that 14-story building. So from there we went down, and by this time it was 5:30 in the evening. So with that entire entourage of a needle in your chest and taping over it so that it's not contaminated, we trudged from the 14th floor to the ground, to the basement. And if you have traveled in Tatas, you will realize the amount of lifts you have to change just to get from the 14th floor to the basement. We had a sonography done. It looked like the needle was in the right place, and they decided to send us back to the chemo OPD. But by the time we got there, we realized that my entire the process of medication, that the time that I would need to take The medication would be around 3 hours, and that would be beyond the time that the unit was open. So they requested us to come the next day morning. So I had a needle inserted inside, taped to me, to take my first chemo, but which was going to happen the next day morning. So next day morning, we decided to come back. My Masi lives at Thane. Thankfully, her sister-in-law Vijaya Chavan lived at Mahim, and we went there for the night because we were supposed to come like in the morning again. And in the morning we came back, and there was still no backflow. And I remember that nurse absolutely standing absolutely on my chest to get that backflow. And eventually, when it happened, it was 2 hours down the line. And that's the story of my first chemo. It was, I didn't know what to expect. Everybody said that it doesn't feel that great. I had seen my dad going through it, but not being a very expressive person, we never actually understood what he was internally going through. My first chemo, the first 2 days, it doesn't affect you. It's the third day that it hits you, and that is because they give you suppressant to see that the body holds the chemo down. And it started getting weird. I didn't know what was happening. I was nauseous all the time. I was supposed to drink 4 liters of water every day, and I drank it like a religion. But that's what I needed to do when I could hardly keep anything in my mouth. My first reactions to chemo was really, really bad. Like I said, it was here, not the body. And I had to go back to the hospital twice. Again, an incident which hit me really hard was watching my 60 plus Masi putting me on a wheelchair and pushing me into casualty at 6 a.m. in the morning. I still can't express what is it that I went through that time. After that, they changed my medication. My reactions to the chemo were less, but my reactions because of the chemo started increasing. And after my second chemo, I started losing my hair. This is a funny conversation that you need to hear. So I was so fed up of seeing hair all over the place. On my pillow, under my bed, every 2 hours brooming did not help. So I decided I needed to go bald. I called up Lakme, and because that was the only certified standardized parlor I knew at that side of the town, I called up Lakme, and then I asked them, I said, I need to go bald. So there was total silence on the other side because I don't think anybody has called them and told them I need to go bald. So the attendant asked me again, what do you want to do? So I said, I need to go bald. So she said, ma'am, we are not a unisex parlor, but we have another one. So can I connect you to them? They connected me to them. So again, the same reaction. I need to go bald. So she didn't understand probably what I was saying. So she said, what? So I said, Taklu, I said, Taklu. And I think she didn't know how to react after that. So she said, it's okay, you can come in. And then I told her, I can't wait. Because I told her I'm going through chemo and somebody needs to be really careful with me and I won't be able to wait. So will you take me in the moment I come in? And they agreed. I had a friend, Sheetal, if you're here, thank you for being there at that moment. So Sheetal came along with me. We went there, and swear to God, everybody in that parlor came out to see who was it that who declared wanted to go bald and was going bald. And he started, there was this very, very sweet fellow. I hope someday I can go and thank him for what he did for me at that time, because he's extremely patient, extremely careful, because this entire process took 2 hours. And by the time I finished, my head had turned red because that's how sensitive my skin was. But initially when he started combing my hair just fell. So Sheetal standing there said that, I don't think, Zaita, you need to even cut your hair. If he combs it for like 5 more times, it will all be gone. But he did a brilliant job. He was extremely patient. And that's bald me which walked in to the house. And I have an iconic uh, picture with my cousin because he decided to go bald with me too. And there were two bald heads in the house having a ball. And that's how onwards I went from my second chemo. By the time I finished my fourth chemo, I was in the loving care of Sham and Nanda Narvekar because my Masi had to leave for Bangalore to attend to her daughter's pregnancy. And when I say Sham Kaka, nobody even imagined that he's my dad's best friend. They always thought he was my dad's younger brother. And that is what I say, that I am who I am is because of these people who have lent me unconditional love regardless of a blood relationship. And he took care of me for another 2.5 months, where I finished my first 4 chemos and started my second session of chemos, which would last for 12 sittings and 1 chemo every week. The first chemo affected my digestive system. The second chemo affected my nervous and skeletal system. And by the time I finished on the 6th of January 2018, I couldn't recognize myself. That was not me who was staring at me. But I was extremely hopeful because I had received unconditional love and care from people who were totally selfless. There was a 21-day gap after that, and I started my radiation. By that time, I had developed lymphedema. So my left hand looked like my left hand. My right hand was 1.2 liters more than my left hand. I needed to go undergo physiotherapy. It's a different kind of physiotherapy. I needed to undergo compression and then tie my hand, and I could only release my hand the next day morning when I went for compression again. And eventually I learned how to do it with my left hand because my right hand was disabled. It was tied up most of the time. And I learned to do a lot of things with my left hand. And you realize that you always think, oh, I'm right-handed and I can never be left-handed. And that's not the case. I just turned left-handed the next day. And through this, with that kind of a hand, I had to undergo radiation, which was daily, which was for 20 sittings. And that is the time Vanda Atya opened her house. Her heart was always mine, but Vanda Atya opened her house for me. And I didn't feel that I was undergoing a treatment. I still had a residual chemo effect, and that I was going to have for another 6 months. So I technically finished my chemo on the 6th of Jan. Before I could taste anything that tasted like food, it was August 2018. So it was 1 year of not having any kind of taste in your mouth. Everything tasted like cardboard. There were times when water hurt you because it tasted sharp. So, and when you fall ill and you're on antibiotics and you think, okay, as soon as this dose is over, I'll be back to normal. Everything will fall into place. And that's the kind of thinking that you have, that, okay, I'm done with chemo, so everything is going to be normal. And I was waiting for the normal every day. It didn't happen because it was going to take its own time. In between, I started my radiation, and my radiation lasted for 20 sittings. That means that it lasted for a month. Now, typically, Tata being Tata, the influx of patient is huge, and they almost all turn nobody back. So the radiation machines were on 24/7, And though it was a 5-minute sitting, I think at any given point there were 100 people there. There were 8 machines, and everybody had a different kind of radiation. So you went to your section only. And twice it so happened that when Akshada Kamath was on the machine decided to fail. So I was here, disrobed, on a machine, in front of technicians, 3 feet high from the ground, on a table, just hanging there in a limbo because the machine decided to stop on me. And we would wait. There was a time when the technician came and he could start it again, but there was a time when the machine had given up on me totally. Not on me literally, but had just decided to give up. And it just decided to give up when I was on it. So having experienced this twice, I asked them that, the next time I'm on, it's not going to stop. After a gap of 4 days, when I got back to radiation, and they said, no ma'am, we are very sorry it happened to you twice, but it's never happened to anybody. I said, thank you very much. That gives me a lot of confidence. And I finished my radiation and my entire treatment on an extremely monumental day, what we call as the Women's Day. My entire treatment came to an end on 8th March 2018, and after that it was just a process of recovery. My mama and mommy took it upon themselves to take me to Nasik, away from the mad city, to recuperate, which I did. I came back here in July looking for a job, which I did get. I started working as the associate director of an NGO in Bombay, and I can't tell you the amazing people I have met, really selfless people. But what hurt me to see was organizations who are supposed to take care of the lowest rung of society are the same organizations who are extremely oppressive and regressive to them. I spent almost all a year with them, training them. These were teachers who worked in municipal schools, in communities, in slum communities, in balwadis. It was an enriching experience, and probably it was their goodwill that sent me on a fellowship to Iowa. I came back equipped with a fellowship in June 2019, and was shocked to know that my NGO behind my back had decided that they needed to employ somebody else, and they didn't think it right enough to inform me or tell me. So again, here I was after a year, jobless, scared, because my last experience had taught me that I had almost 110 applications and nobody even bothered calling me back. But this time it was a tad different. People did respond, and it was a process of 3 months till I could find a job where I am today. I am today not because of what I did. I am today because of hard work, unconditional love, and deep dedication of a lot many people. I am here today because people have given with open hearts. It's like a movie. The movie is a hit not because of the 2 performing stars. The movie is a hit because a lot of people work behind scenes to make it happen. And that's exactly who I am. I owe my second innings mostly to my Rock of Gibraltar, whose name is Sonali Kamath. She has been, and it would be funny saying that because people who know our history know that we haven't had one of the most smooth journeys till now. But she gave unconditionally, and she supported me through my darkest. So did a lot of my friends. The list is unending. So did the blessings and the prayers of a lot of elders who who have taken it upon themselves to call me their own. So there are the Shastris, the Dikshits, the Karmarkars, the Baikerikars, the Rasals, the Naiks. The list goes on, and the Sharmas. The list goes on and on and on. And some of them are my contemporaries. One name that I would like and love to take here is of Sachin, who has stood by me before and after and during my treatment, and has been a source of pure joy and inspiration. And I can't even tell you the amount of names I need to take on this platform. I just can't start there because it would take me almost all 15 minutes talking about them. But this has been my journey, and there are 3 instances through this journey that really made an impact, and all were during the treatment that I was going through. So we shared beds. We had 2 patients at the same time undergoing chemo, and I have had really amusing instances, and I have had heartbreaking instances of the people who I saw next to me. I have seen a 17-year-old undergoing chemo and his mother crying bitterly when he was injected. I have seen and thankfully on my last day, because I think it would have traumatized me a lot more if I had seen a 3-year-old child with his mother being undergoing chemo right in front of my eyes. And the shocking thing was she was alone. With a 45-year-old, there were at least 3 people at any given point of time. And she had come alone with her 3-year-old child to administer chemo. And there was one lady who I will never forget. Because of my entire get-up of how I carried myself, everybody thought, so I tied a turban around my bald head, and I would have these flowing gowns called dresses, so that it was just comfortable administering the medication I needed to get through. And she sat next to me, and it was just me and Ishan, because we had come for a checkup and pick up the medication for the chemo on the next day. So when Ishan spoke to me in Marathi, she just turned around and said, "Oh, you're a Maharashtrian?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she said that, I've been watching you for the last 2 months, but I thought you were an African because of the turban you wore. And she said, "I just thought you were a fairer African." And I don't think I have laughed so hard. But her story was heartbreaking. She was a 35-year-old woman who had come there for a checkup with her friend, because her husband needed to work, and she had 2 young daughters aged 4 and 6. And she said the only reason that my daughters did not need to drop out of school and could continue their schooling was because their class teachers decided to come and pick them up every morning, feed them up in their lunch break, take whatever academic work was needed after school, and then come back and drop them home. Otherwise, my daughters would have to miss school or miss a year because of my treatment. And then I realized how blessed I was, how very blessed I was to have this entire support system in various forms behind me to get me to where I am. So this is a huge thank you to all of you for giving me a patient ear. And this is a huge thank you to all of you who have stood behind me unconditionally, lovingly, and supportively to get me to where I am. I am today a deputy principal of an international school, but the credit of me being here goes very little to me, but a lot to all those who have helped me through this journey for the last 3 years. So thank you very much. And I would like to end it with, I'm a very ordinary person, but I have been given an extraordinary life, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you. Okay. Okay, it says I can't. Okay, so there are messages coming in, and I don't know if I can answer to. I will try. I will try to answer to all of them. Love you too, Palu. Thank you, Debashish. I am going. Thank you, Aparna. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you, Runal. Okay, so my very, very, very dear PA is also on this call, and I'm so grateful that she's here. Thank you, Nisha. Nisha was my first coordinator at Hillspring. Thank you, Nanda Kaki. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Geeta. Thank you, Auntie. Okay, Radhu, if you say it's not funny, it's not funny. So thank you everybody for being here and giving me this opportunity to share my story. Thank you, Sexy. Thank you, MK. Thank you, Rebecca. Oh, Augustine, the feeling is totally mutual. Are yaar, MK. So I'm going to, if there are any questions or anything that anybody would like to ask, please shoot. I would be more than happy. Yes, you will be able to see this. I don't know who this message is from saying that you, Om Mrunal. You will be, because it will be posted on the group. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to look at all your comments and respond. And I hope to see you soon. And Sheetal, thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell my story. Thank you.